Government by the people.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And a very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Live. We are, as always, broadcasting from the Newsfirst studios in Doss Street in Colombo. My guest this evening is journalist, poet, political columnist, and the curator of columnist.lk. None other than Mr. Malinda Seneviratne. Very good evening to you, Malinda.
Happy to be here.
Wonderful. Now then, I thought we'd talk to you about the current situation, various matters to discuss. One, of course, is this whole business about the East Terminal. Now, sometime back, there was an announcement of sorts that an Indian company would hold, I think it was 39 or 49%. Okay. And there was always that Sri Lanka would be very much in control of it. And then we had the Indian foreign minister here. And whilst one brother was kind of entertaining him, meeting with him, the other was in Parliament assuring the public that no, we're not giving it to them. Nothing doing. What's with the anomaly?
Well, I think the invitation to the Indian foreign minister was made about a year ago.
Right.
So that is, you can have that kind of conversation. You can, and they can talk about anything they like. Since the issue was brought up, and the foreign minister of India, Jaishankar, was talking about expediting the whole East Terminal deal.
Yeah.
I suppose the Prime Minister had to make a statement. Now let's talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind. It's not just 49% ownership, it's the control of operations.
Yeah.
Right? And the company that is reported to be in the forefront of the race to the Indian company, Indian group,
rather large
port development group, they are also building a port in Kerala.
Right.
So now just imagine, you own a flower shop, right? And then I also start something. You say, okay, let me handle that.
Yeah.
What would you do if you just have a 49% stake? You would operate in a business sense purely to wreck my operations, right? That is the suspicion that people are having, and the government has to come clear.
So is that what happened with Sri Lankan Airlines and Emirates then?
I am not sure about that, but let's talk about this.
Right,
is an immediate, in our face kind of thing. Jaishankar comes here, talks about the COVID vaccine and all that. 99.5% of the infected recover, right? So if that is the price we have to pay to give, the port operations, to wreck our port operations, essentially, the possibility is there, or to play a kind of a minor role in the Indian Ocean in this area with respect to transshipment, I think that is a poor deal from our point of view. But the government has to come clean on this, just to make a statement, what is what. We don't know what kind of, don't forget that Geneva is going to come next month, and we know that already the UK is making all kinds of noises about resolutions against Sri Lanka, and America, even after Trump, although it's still officially not part of the UNHRC, will use its proxies in the European Union and Britain to to look after its interests, and American interests right now with respect to Sri Lanka, as apparent from the ambassador's statement after the MCC went south, is not friendly. Whether India has promised we will dilute the resolution or something, we don't know.
Right.
Certain things.
But that's one. Then the port is another matter.
So the port is could be a price for that.
And then the vaccine. Are you telling me that there may be some sort of connection between the vaccine from India and the port? They're rather callous if it is.
Usually bilateral relations, not about single issues.
Right.
Right? Jaishankar talked about the 13th Amendment. India did not keep up its part of the bargain, the 13th Amendment, right? And we have people who are saying that, you know, if relations with India soured, then what would happen to the oil tanks, right, in Trincomalee? And India was supposed to, that would ward off the foreign powers.
Yeah.
Foreign powers without India. So are these like Indian agents talking? We are a sovereign nation. We have some pride. We may not be the most powerful. We may not even be anywhere close to being powerful. But that does not mean
we are who we are.
We can say what we see. We can say things as they are. And I think that the government owes the people the truth to come clean. Whatever the decision is, lay it all out. Lay it before us so that we can say something about it. Say, okay, that's a good idea. No, that's a stupid, terrible idea. That's going to compromise our national security. That's going to compromise the future of our transshipment business. So that I think that the onus is on the government
to have a look to see
and tell us what's what about the Eastern.
There's plenty of other things what the public, I'm sure, would like to know what's what. And this brings me nicely to the issue of one Pillai, who was recently in the news for sort of, I don't know, for whatever reason, but the Attorney General's Department has now said that they will not be pursuing the prosecution in terms of the murder that he was alleged to have participated in.
No, why? The question is why? Why have they not said anything?
Yes, but the point is that this fellow, this man has been, whatever his past, he was in remand for a pretty long time. And all of a sudden, while he's in bail, they just sort of say, well, you know, we're not pursuing the matter. Yeah. But there is no explanation. Surely the people need to be told.
I don't think it's a legal requirement to explain.
No, there's no legal requirement.
Yeah, but you know, they say justice needs to be seen to be done. You know, that. Now, let's take the case of Hijaz Hizbullah. He's been in custody now for almost a year, I think, several months anyway.
Right.
And a lot of people, human rights activists, foreign missions, state departments of various countries, you know, they be making noises about this person being held without trial.
Right.
But none of them, not a single one of them, talked about Pillai being held for 5 years. In that 5 years, not one person said, why not bring this person to trial? Why not, and not just him, all the you know, so-called hardcore LTT cadres in custody. Why not finish it off one way or the other, or give them a general amnesty and finish it off? That is also a possibility. That's legally possible. But the duplicity in commentary is horrendous, I believe. And now, in the case of Pillai, forgetting the history, because everyone has, you know, we are not going to say Pillai is squeaky clean. I can't do that.
No.
He has been part of a terrorist organization.
Yes.
And but that is not what he was held for. He was arrested for something else.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be, whether he has picked a pocket or killed a man, right? You bring him to trial, and he, at the end of 5 years, the state has robbed 5 years of a man's life, whether it is Pillai or Hizbullah or someone else, I don't care. A fellow citizen's years have been robbed almost at the whims and fancies of whoever had to make those decisions.
Right.
And that's a very scary thought, because tomorrow it could be you, day after tomorrow it could be me.
It could be. Now, I want to talk about, you just mentioned a word here which I thought was relevant. Duplicity, the apparent duplicity. Then explain to me, if you can, we have this prescribed by law in Sri Lanka outfit known as the LTT that was declared to be a terrorist outfit.
Not prescribed, prescribed.
Prescribed.
Yeah.
Prescribe.
You can't prescribe that.
No, you can't prescribe that. Of course not. Prescribe, right? And they were a terrorist organization. They were responsible for the murder of several Tamil politicians. Okay? Now we have the TNA, who is supposedly, they claim to be the voice of the Tamil people. Okay? Now, they want to commemorate, mark the dead LTT in November.
Mahavir Day.
Mahavir Day. Okay, Mahavir Day. Now then, so they are commemorating the dead LTT, the people who are responsible for killing all these Tamil politicians.
Well,
And yet, no, I haven't finished. And yet, they were supportive of the government of the day, the columnists, to prosecute Pillai. Now, am I looking too deeply into this, or is that because Pillai was a person who was
identified with the Rajapaksa.
identified with the previous government, the Rajapaksa administration?
Well, Pillai was also identified. I mean, not that he was identified. He
They,
was against
the TNA doesn't ask for a commemoration day for Mr. Amirthalingam, do they?
No, they don't. But you have to understand this. TNA's position has fluctuated. When it was formed under the guidance of the LTT and Prabhakaran,
Yes.
they accepted the LTT as the sole representative of the Tamils. So
Right.
they were essentially saying we are the voice of the LTT in Parliament.
Yeah.
So they are also playing electoral politics. Their claims to represent the interests of the Tamil people needs to be questioned. Anyway, Jaffna and I think Nallur or some, I can't remember the other place, the TNA lost its hold on the local government bodies.
Yeah.
But what is interesting for me in all this is the Jaffna University, the commemorate,
Yes.
the whatever plaque or whatever thing that was there.
It's kind of a statue. kind of thing.
The commemorating the people who died in LTT essentially, that was raised to the ground.
Yeah.
Subsequently, the Vice Chancellor said it is against reconciliation or something like that. And then he himself puts a new foundation stone. I don't think that university students have the right to put up buildings or anything at will.
Yeah.
Right, that maybe through a discussion that can happen. I don't know whether whoever gave permission, that discussion has taken place. But when it was raised to the ground, I saw a post by one of the students saying, we are telling the Sinhala government, we are not going to fight with you, we are not going to war with you, but let us commemorate our heroes. Now the moment you say Sinhala government, you're essentially saying, we don't want any reconciliation, you are there, we are here,
Yeah.
right? So then the Vice Chancellor's claim has some relevance.
Right.
But what is interesting to me is, okay, for a Tamil student who wants to commemorate the LTT, seeing some commemoration or some plaque or some monument to fallen soldiers, they say those guys were terrorists or those guys were wicked people, nasty people. We don't identify with that. And we can say from this side, you guys were terrorists. TNS also could say, but they won't.
Yeah.
But that is not going to bring us any closer to closure. But why can't the government, actually, they could tell these students who are so aggrieved, Puta, right, build, design a monument where anyone can grieve, because, see, the only thing that is absolutely honest are the tears of the loved ones of those who died. That means regardless of what their politics were, why they died, who killed them, whatever, the mothers, the fathers, the children.
Yeah.
The temperature is the same whether it's south, east, west or north.
Correct.
The moisture is the same. If we have one monument where we can all grieve, I think those students will understand that.
On that note, Malinda Seneviratne, we'll go for a short break and come back after this little message about the headlines for this evening's primetime news. Don't go away. This is Newsline Live.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly. News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. Thank you very much for your questions by SMS 0772 300 305. And this one is relevant to what we've just been talking about. What do you think of this decision of the Attorney General's department to, in effect, drop the charges against Mr. Pillai? But yet, there was a time when Mr. Karuna, Eastern Commander of the LTT, and another one, a convicted murderer at one point, being allowed into Parliament. And then at the same, with the same breath, we have Mr. Ramanayaka being sent to prison for 4 years rigorous imprisonment. I'm sorry, but I am utterly confused. I'm more confused because the TNA want to commemorate the LTT dead and want to prosecute the living LTT, and yet it is the LTT who murdered all these Tamil politicians, right? And on the other side, nobody's asking for a commemoration for Mr. Amirthalingam, who's killed by the LTT.
Not only Mr. Amirthalingam.
No, and so many more.
So many other Tamil professionals, politicians, other Tamil
They snuffed the life out of Lakshman Kadirgama.
Right. So let's get to the judicial issues that you raised. Now, I'm not a lawyer nor an expert on these matters, but
it appears that there is no integrity.
That is so. Now, why would the prosecutor, public prosecutor, drop a case? Of course, personnel in these organizations also change from time to time. Things change.
The law and the facts don't change.
They don't change. So if someone decides to drop a case, it could be, if you want to give the benefit of the doubt, that they don't have evidence to proceed. It could also be that certain pressures have been brought upon the particular officials, that means the Attorney General's department in this case, not to prosecute. We don't know what is what unless the Attorney General tells us.
It's a bit like legal students are usually taught that facts can alter cases like powder alters faces.
Circumstances alter cases.
Yes.
Circumstances can alter cases, but I mean there's a lot of issues with the entire legal system of the country. There's a lot of issues with the whole corpus of the law. You know, and then
Or was it that in the last government, when they took a decision to arrest Pillai and prosecute him, was that a kind of a thank you to the TNA for the support that they undoubtedly gave?
I don't want to speculate on that, but I would feel that 5 years is long enough. They were in power for 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years is long enough if there's any evidence. If it was an open and shut case, then we should have got a decision by now. The same thing with Hijaz Hizbullah. If it's an open and shut case, you can say, well, we are still collecting evidence, we are still doing the investigations, but 5 years. 5 years is a hell of a long time. We're talking about Ranjan Ramanayaka's,
Well, I
sentence.
mean, on the face of it, he deserved what he got.
See,
Well, because that's what the court has decided.
that's the thing. Now we can't talk about that for us without running the risk of being held for contempt of court, right?
No, we're not. All I'm saying,
but
saying,
see,
is
what I'm saying is, okay, if someone is in contempt,
we are merely discussing.
yeah, for us now, I may be a good Samaritan. I may be feeding the poor and all those things. That does not give me license to indulge in any infringement of the law. You can be good on 10 counts, and that does not give you the right to do wrong in the 11th instance. So Ranjan Ramanayaka is celebrated as a person, he's a bit of a radical in the way he does stuff. But I mean, his business of recording conversations without permission of the other person is highly unethical.
Right.
And I
well,
think
we'll
all that
we'll
probably
leave
contributed.
Mr. Ramanayaka alone, because otherwise, you and I might be having to go and do things which we don't like to do. Right? So we don't want to go down there. But I think the
But
point...
okay, I'm going to ask you
the
a
point
hard question now, since we are friends and we are fellow journalists and we are having a conversation.
Yes.
Would you challenge people to say that our justice system does not have any holes? The justice system is absolutely clean, incorruptible, corrupt. That is not a question we can ask.
No, we can't.
We can't ask, and I don't think anyone will have the guts to come and say, obviously, yes, of course, because it is, no system is perfect.
No system is perfect, and it is an ongoing process.
Ongoing process. Now the US ambassador, after about a week of silence about
Yes, now what happened over there is
what happened?
absolutely disgraceful.
But what did she say? Her statement, which she has tweeted, Madam Teplis says, Her Excellency says, these are hiccups, essentially saying there are hiccups as we try to become more perfect. What is more perfect? I mean, the perfection is a finality.
Yeah.
You want to become better than that, I don't know what you want to call it. But the sleight of hand is saying we are almost there. We are like 99.9% perfect, but there's a small flaw. But American democratic system, Malcolm X said this, American democracy is hypocrisy. This is like 1968, I think that's 40 odd years ago, almost 50 years ago, and then more than 50. And then he also said that the American dream is a black man's nightmare. Right? You talk to the minorities in the United States and ask anyone, can you have 100% guarantee that when you walk down the streets of Minneapolis or Washington DC, Boston or New York or Chicago, Atlanta, you will not get shot by a white policeman, whereas a white man will not? We say, I'm not sure.
But these are real questions.
These are real questions. Now,
real concerns.
That is why when she says we are almost perfect, essentially, I'm very amused. Come on, Ambassador, do you think that we are living in a world where we don't read the news and read between the lines? We do.
We do indeed. In a corporate world, and as we do here at the Capital Maharaj Group, CMG as well, we follow what is called ethics, social responsibility, transparency, and accountability. Do you think that these values is something that the government might want to pay attention to, so that we will then end up with a real equitable society?
First of all, I wouldn't give a blank check or that kind of certificate to any corporate. The assumption is that corporates are ethical, that they are honorable, that they are not corrupt. They're talking about graft, they're talking about bribes. There are bribe takers, there are bribe givers also. You know, so how many companies fold up? We don't talk about that. We talk about how the state system is, the state corporations are inefficient. But companies also shut down. We know that. So, but having said that, most definitely transparency, accountability, ethics, and good governance. Those are things.
We have ministers. We have ministers who've been in discussion with contractors who, whilst a cabinet-approved committee is evaluating bids. We've had an instance like that.
Not just one.
Not one, but in the last government, we did a story about that as well. And you know,
I don't think that is that is not the preserve of any particular government. All governments have had.
That doesn't make it right, though.
It doesn't make it right. That is why we need to have systems of checks and balances, which make it impossible for that kind of thing to happen. But we don't, and that's not saying that other countries do, right? But whether other countries do or not, America is notorious for insider deals in these kinds of things. Why they fund certain candidates and not others, and what happens in the lobbying in Washington DC. So that is also it's a global phenomenon. But well, we can be better than we are, although we won't say like Ambassador Tepp is more perfect. We can be better than we are, and I think you're right. I mean, obviously we should be able to hold people accountable. I believe that ethics is a good thing and something that has to be cultivated. I believe that it is good for a government, the president, to come clear about certain things. I'm going to do this for these particular reasons. It might hurt certain people, but can't help. Right?
Facts are stubborn.
Yeah, this is why I do this, and I think that the people of this country will appreciate the straight talk. It might make some people uncomfortable. It might make people who voted for him uncomfortable, but they will sympathize and empathize if he were to be direct.
Malinda Seneviratne, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live, and that's the way it was. It's now time for the primetime news from News First. Take care, great evening ahead of you, and as always, God bless you.